Hi everybody, it's Dandruff, and today's news cartridge is going to be a little bit different, mostly because we're running mostly unscripted, and it's on a Saturday. That's because a terrible event has happened in video game news, and yesterday the first ever death in a swatting event occurred. Swatting is a method of reporting a false incident to police in hopes that a SWAT team is called out to the address as to embarrass or possibly endanger somebody else. Usually it's a streamer or a YouTuber. In this particular instance, it was between two Call of Duty players. Now, there was some information going around that this was over a $1.50 bet between a person known as Vaporizer and another person known as Miracle. This information is completely incorrect. Vaporizer and Miracle were on the same team, and there was a team kill. Somebody had shot and killed their own teammate, which resulted in the loss of a game. There was an argument that was started between the two, and Vaporizer contacted a user known as Swatastic, also known as Tyler Barris. Mr. Barris has a history of swatting or of evacuating certain large events. He says that he likes to do it to have it displayed on the news. He just kind of gets, that's how he gets his jollies, if you'll call it. Personally, I think that's sick and disgusting. After Vaporizer contacts Barris, Barris contacts Miracle. Miracle taunts Barris by giving him a fake address, saying things that you won't do it, you won't do. He basically eggs him on, daring him that he won't follow through with his threats. I would argue that because Barris does have a history with it, he had absolutely no trouble. He calls the Kansas 911, reports a hostage and murder situation. He tells the 911 operator that his mother and father had gotten into an argument. I believe his father had hit his mother with a pistol. He then obtained the pistol and shot his father in the head. His father was not breathing. For some reason, the call eludes or evolves into he is standing next to a closet and has his mother and his brother in the closet and is holding them at gunpoint. Police arrive at the house at the address that was given, and one Mr. Andrew Finch steps out. I had seen the video that the SWAT team had released. It appears to me as though Mr. Finch walks outside. A light is shown onto him to identify him. He raises his hands to block the light and is immediately shot. He is pronounced dead 17 minutes afterward. The officer thought that he had a gun, and the weird part about all of this was the 911 operator was still on the phone with Barris, claiming he had a gun, standing next to his mother and brother, holding them at gunpoint, when Finch stepped out of his house. The police did not knock on the door. Finch only came outside after he heard yelling and they saw red and blue flashing lights. Finch was a father of two, 28 years old, did not own a gun, did not play video games, and was not involved in any way. A lot of this information comes to us from Keemstar. He had secured an interview with Barris. There's a link to that video down below. Barris admits more or less to swatting, to this swatting incident, as well as to other swattings, reporting a false bomb threat, including one to the FCC when they were holding their vote about whether or not to repeal net neutrality. I remember that there was an incident where the people in the building needed to be evacuated, and I believe after that the vote was held behind closed doors for safety of the people voting as well as the safety of the public. He had also uh, evacuated the Kaylee Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in Dallas, Texas during the Call of Duty World League. There's new information that Barris has been arrested and is in police custody in Los Angeles. Quite frankly, I am horrified and disgusted by this entire event. If you go listen to the 911 call itself, it's very disturbing. He seems to have no emotion in his voice, or very little emotion in his voice at all, for someone who claims that during the call, he claims that he was having anxiety because his father was no longer breathing. His voice did not reflect that anxiety. He wasn't panicking. He had trouble determining whether or not his mother's room was in the front or the back of the house. I understand somebody who is under stress would have trouble remembering these things, or have trouble determining these things, but then they would also be showing signs of stress. Up until now, there have not been any deaths in any swatting incidents. The worst incident that I am aware of is someone being shot with a rubber bullet in the face, and while it did cause damage, was not lethal. I am honestly disgusted and horrified by people who think that swatting is an acceptable means of handling this sort of situation. Obviously, it endangers people's lives. It costs taxpayers money. It's just unnecessary. It's a waste of resources. And now we have a waste of human life. There's a really big question of who is responsible here, and there is no doubt that Mr. Barris, who made the call, is 100% responsible. He does not see it that way. If you listen to his interview with Keemstar, which I completely recommend you do, one of the few times I'll actually recommend a DramaAlert video, that he does not believe that he murdered someone because he did not pull the trigger. He believes that he is responsible. He does believe he should serve jail time if that's what is determined. But in my opinion, did not show remorse, was not resentful of his actions, could barely understood that he had done something wrong. And if he did do something wrong, he was not going to take the blame himself. There's also the party of Miracle, who had provided the false address and was egging on Barris to swat him. Now, I have always said that short of the words "please come swat me," that is not encouraging people to swat you. I do not believe that displaying your public location should warrant swatting. I don't think that encourages swatting. There have been instances with another streamer, Ice Poseidon, who streams in public a lot and would get the police called on him. He recently did while he was flying. He had his airplane evacuated because of a swatting attempt. I do not believe that those instances warrant swatting. I believe that individual was trying to egg him on. Barris also believes that he does not have responsibility in this because he was asked by Vaporizer to do the swatting. So he had not only one person requesting to do this, but someone saying, "Oh, you dare won't do this." That, to me, is a sick individual. Someone who needs to go away for a long time, who doesn't realize that this puts somebody in jeopardy and would rather perpetuate somebody else's argument and start their own and then swat somebody. Now, up until a few moments ago when I started doing a lot of more research, I'll be honest, I did not think that Barris was acting under the supervision, we'll say, of somebody else, under the request of somebody else. Barris has a history of doing these things, willingly admitting doing these things. So I was skeptical that he was, we'll say, contracted, asked, he was propagated to do this. So for those reasons, I do believe that Vaporizer could possibly be at fault. Now the other question is the officer who had fired the who had I'm just going to stop there, you know what I mean. Is that officer responsible? I am going to have to say no, my own opinion, because of the nature of the 911 call. If this was a disturbed individual who had done these things and was acting calmly and the way that he was on the phone, then time is of the essence. We don't have 30 minutes to go investigate this to figure out whether or not this is actually real. We don't have 5 minutes. We have to do this now. We have to get those people out of there, that mother and that son, out of that house, away from that other individual with the gun. So they have to act quickly and swiftly. If they don't, more lives could be lost. He had also claimed, I should have mentioned this, he had also claimed that he had spread gasoline around the house and was going to light it on fire at any moment. Time is of the essence. There's not really much that could be done. You don't want to approach a house with somebody who is wielding a gun just to have your own life be lost needlessly again. So the officer's acting from a range with a spotlight. I understand. I think it should have been taken into consideration, though, that the person that they thought had a gun had come outside and they shot him. I don't necessarily think that it was Andrew Finch that they were looking for. They didn't know who they were looking for, so this is where police tactics probably need to be called into question. In what way? I don't know. I'm not an expert of that at all. I'm an expert of video game news. That is a rather hard question for me to answer. So how to prevent this? And unfortunately, I don't think that this is going to sell well, but I don't think we can. I think certain measures can be taken by the police as well as by people who want to be public figures to inform the police that I am, you may be doing this job, this may be happening, I put myself out on the internet, and there are people out there who like to cause this kind of chaos. The police are very aware of swatting. It is not an unheard of thing. It's very well known by this day and age, which is, again, unfortunate, but thankfully knowledge is power. I think the best we can do is try to just be more aware of what is going on, the nature of these things, the people who have the history of these things. And somebody like Barris should have been arrested a long time ago. I personally feel as though there was enough, him to have enough of a criminal history, that is, if it was pinned on him, for him to not be a member of society. You can't stop crazy people from being crazy. That's just a fact of life. And another fact of life, which is unfortunate, is this is going to happen again. I had been saying up until now that it is not a matter of if, but only a matter of when. What to do? I really don't know. It's scary. It's frightening. I hope Mr. Barris goes away for a long time. I hope that it sends out a message to people who want to do these kinds of terrible pranks. I don't even want to call it a prank, because this is not a prank. These terrible acts of endangering other people's lives needlessly. My heart goes out to Mr. Finch's family, to his children, to his mother. I cannot believe that this has happened, and that an individual who had no relation to any of this lost their life. Thank you for hearing me out on this. If there's any more information, I'll try to update you as it comes out. Thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful and happy New Year.